So I want to make sure everybody can access the Canvas page. So if you have not checked it out, please make sure to check it out. It's called Physical Scientists. You're going to open that up, and I just made a new announcement yesterday. So when you open up that announcement, this is what you're going to see. There is a breakdown of every single thing you're going to need. So whatever you needed for the previous announcement, I just put it here in one place. So the choice board is right here. It is down below. Now, I don't think it's like quite user friendly, the one that's copied and pasted right here. So I also put a PDF version right here too. So you can open up the PDF version, which I think is much easier to look at. Wow, where'd that mark come from? So here is the choice board. Now notice that like for Monday, you have a whole bunch of things. For Tuesday, you have a whole bunch, okay? So the purpose of this, when I spoke with other students, was you guys are bored of bookwork. You don't want to do it anymore, and I wouldn't if I were you either. Like it's boring, and you may or may not even be learning from it. That's really like rote memory work. You just do it to recall. So I try to make things more interesting. So I put this out yesterday afternoon. So if you continued the work from last week, that is perfectly okay. That work was actually built into the choice board. So notice it has like 5 test prep questions. It should have, like it has the 12 powerful words. I decided to alternate days, but really you could have done that. So if you did work from like the previous, that initial paperwork that was sent out, that's totally fine. As long as I see that you're engaged, you're active, I'm giving you a daily grade for it, and it's going in a grade book. So I'm putting in like little by little. So like as people are sending me their work, I have it like on a paper document, and then I'm kind of like putting them in the grade book in waves. So, so that being said, if you are looking at Infinite Campus, okay, if you are looking at your grade, whoever's drawn on my screen, can you stop? Because I don't want you to like cover something I can't uncover. Or I can't like undo whatever it is you're doing. Okay, so as I was saying, for Infinite Campus, when you go to look at grades, don't be like, oh my God, I got a 60 on this thing. That's not what you got. So what I'm doing is I'm taking old assignments and I'm putting points to them. So if you, for example, saw that you got a 60 on an assignment, it was probably a 0 before, it was probably 40 before or something like that, okay? So don't look at the assignment grade. Look at your actual grade, your overall grade, because that's what you're going to see starting to increase. So I'm going to start with the missings, with the zeros. I'm going to start replacing those first because that will give you the biggest boost to your grade immediately. And then I'll start with like the classwork and test grade, stuff like that. So basically the points will go at improving your grade. You do the work, your grade goes up. That's really it, okay? There's several people who messaged me that they're seeing my messages but didn't actually send in their work. If you have not sent it in, send it in. It's only going to help you, okay? So just a reminder for that. And now, okay, back to the choice board. So you have a whole bunch of options, all right? This board was built for like 3 weeks worth of work. So notice that you have the live stream here. So on Mondays, I'm gonna live stream a lab. That being said, next Monday, we will be doing a solubility lab. You will need resources, but you already have them at home. So just for your information, on Monday, we will be doing the lab where you are either making tea, you can make tea, you can make lemonade, you can make limeade, you could make, what else? Kool-Aid, you can make like the Hispanic versions. I forgot what it's called off the top of my head, but you know, the powder you mix in, but those are pre-sugared. Try to stay away from something that already has sugar in it. You're gonna need cups, water, and sugar. So basically we're gonna be looking at like what happens to sugar as you raise the temperature to water. How do you make like the right sweet tea? or Kool-Aid or whatever. So that is the lab we'll be doing on Monday. But Monday will be a lab. So I'll be in my kitchen. I'll be showing you what I'm doing, and then you do it along with me, basically. On Wednesday, it'll be live stream. Since you guys specifically requested Zoom, maybe I'll change that up to like live stream 2 to 2:30, Zoom 2:30 to 3, so that there can be some question and answer in there, as well as I'll work out a problem, you work it out with me and show me that you got it. Okay, on Tuesday and Thursday, we have drop-in office hours. So it's come to my attention that people don't know what that means. So when it says office hours, so that's just telling you when I'm available to, like, for anything, to ask or answer any question. And drop-in just means if you need something, you just log in, ask me what you need to ask, and then you log back out. So when you guys end up going into college or into trade school or into any professional program, there are drop-in office hours, which is why I'm using that language. So that's just what it means. So if you have a question, that's just a general question, then just hop right on in, just like you did now, and then ask whatever you have to ask. But if you have a question that's more sensitive, such as grades, if you want to ask, why is my grade what it is? How do I improve my grade? What's going on? Maybe you have something you want to share that you don't want other people to hear. That's what the appointment is for, okay? So you don't have to set up an appointment. If you just have a general question or a question about work, you can either remind me or drop in on the Zoom, okay? It's not required, but it's something you can do. And that will count as like an activity towards like homework, because that's you trying to better yourself, answer questions, get questions answered. Okay. So now something else I wanted to point out, because some people are trying to do like everything down this row. Please do not. Pick 2, okay? So every week, the live stream part, so this right here changes every week. So that'll be something new. So honestly, each week you could do like the video. The USA test prep, I put hundreds of questions on there. You have plenty of material. As far as the EOC test prep, pre-test questions right here, there's a total of like 72 to 76 questions, something like that. You have plenty to go through if that's what you really want to do. As far as read-alongs, I will be uploading more and more of those videos. You can just listen to it and then just kind of write notes about what you heard from the video. Okay, and there will be multiple there, so if that's what you like, that's what you're going to do. Now, as far as take a walk outside for 30 minutes, now I know that's some of you guys are like, nope, I'm not walking. I don't want to walk. Cool. It's a choice board. You pick 2. You don't have to, okay? And I also know like the past 2-3 days, it's been ridiculous outside. Like it's been just so rainy, so dismal. Like you couldn't really go out for anything. So this is like ooh, it's sunny outside. I'm going to take a walk in a safe neighborhood, assuming you don't live like on a road. Please, just keep yourself safe. But drawing your surroundings or writing about your surroundings, just anything you can think of that somehow relates to physical science. We covered so many topics, pick one, okay? And each day the weather's different, you'll see something different. Like I sat outside earlier watching my kids ride their bikes. I literally heard 4 helicopters. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But there were like 4 helicopters and they each like drove by within, each flew by, and I'd say about 10 to 12 minute increments. And so I was like, ooh, the Doppler effect, where is it? And I was sitting there trying to find it. And then I was like, ooh, well, where would the sound wave be? But that's just me. Something like that, like something as simple as that experience. Hey, it's making those connections, right? If you can't walk outside for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, I don't care. Write down what you experienced and then take a picture, okay? Now I had a concern about the record an audio or video clip of whatever it says to. Some people don't have access to recording audio or video clip. So they said, hey, can I write it down on a sheet of paper instead? Absolutely, okay? If you want to like draw some sort of a graph, a chart, just use words. Draw me a picture of the options here where it says record audio or video. Please do that, okay? I added that on there for people who may like to do that. Like some people really like to record themselves. Well, then do it. But if you don't or don't have access to that technology, don't worry about it, okay? This choice board is catered to you, all right? Now, the other thing, notice where it says or, like like pretty much most things are in bold, but then you have these ors that are underlined that are not bolded in bold. When you see one of these boxes with ors in it, that is telling you basically that you have options. But for instance, if you, like for the powerful words, we'll look up here. If you are like, hey, defining words is easy, I'm going to do that every week. Okay, well then that means week 1, you're going to define 2 of the 12 powerful words. But majority of you guys actually defined them all already. And I was like, dang, you know, that was supposed to last you 2 weeks, but good job, guys. But you're going to define 2 of the powerful words, and then the following week, you'll define octet and charge balance. The following week, you'll define pH and solubility. So that's the way this is broken down. So this is like actually over 3 weeks of material, unless you already defined your 12 powerful words. Now I noticed that some of you guys are doing like a lot of work, and really what you guys are doing is working ahead. Slow down. Like, don't, we are not trying to put out work to bombard you. Like, it's just to do like a little something every day. If you were spending more than 20 minutes a day, like excluding these kind of chat videos, if you were spending more than 20 minutes a day on my work, then you're doing too much work. It should not take that long. It's meant to be short, sweet, to the point, okay? Now, I hope that at least answers some of the questions about this. I had a student, actually multiple students, specifically request Kahoot games. So it says MMO, meaning massive multiplayer online. What I want is I want to try to get all my students to log on together. And you know how people have messed around with the game and like throw 100 random people in there. So we know that actually works, that it can hold up to like 100-something students. But this will be for bonus points, okay? So I'll send a link out, be like, hey guys, go to this Kahoot game, and then get signed in on your phone or online on a computer or something. And then top 3, I'll throw bonus points your way, okay? Now notice, Friday, you don't have any work for Friday, okay? And this should be the same for all of your classes. So Friday will be your catch-up day. Okay, so Friday will be your catch-up day. So if someday during the week you were busy helping your siblings, or you just weren't in the mood, or doing work for someone else's class, okay, then on Friday, catch up my work and then submit it. Now, as far as submitting your work, you can submit your work the day you did it. I don't mind. What's happening, what I'm noticing is people are sending it in waves, like every other day. They're sending in the work for like 2 days. Some people are sending in the work like Friday for the whole week. Some people are sending it daily. Everyone's doing their own thing. Honestly, I do not mind. I don't care how you send it in. For me, it's easiest if you send your work either through email or Remind, specifically Remind, because I immediately see that your work's attached. And then like, I don't open it until I sit down in front of the grade book to make sure you get your grade. Okay. And I'll give you like a thumbs up or like a, you know, I got it or something like that. And when I send you that message, that tells you, yes, I physically put a check in the grade book. And you can also send it through email too. If you are doing the video audio recording, you probably want to do it through email because I don't think Remind will hold a file that size. Really. We're going to start by looking at question 11. It's on my screen. Now, where am I supposed to draw? Go erase all that. Okay. So we are going to start with potassium and bromine. I highly suggest you get a periodic table next to you. Quite honestly, you don't need it because they kind of tell you what the charges are. I'm going to stop at question 15 because 16 through 20 get to polyatomics. You do not need to know polyatomic ions for this class. Okay, so let's look at question 11. So question 11, we have, okay, so we have potassium. Why are you giving me lines? Like, can't I just draw? Oh, I did the wrong one. That's why. Okay, so it says potassium with a +1 charge. And then it says bromine with a minus. So even though it says bromine with a minus, it literally is trying to say bromine -1. Okay, so according to the swap and drop, what I talked about before, there's 2 ways you could approach this problem to figure out the chemical formula. Tell me one of the ways you could figure it out.
Could you repeat? My computer's audio went out.
I'm on my phone.
So we have potassium with a +1 charge, and then we have bromine with a -1 charge. So we want to create the chemical formula where we put the two together. There's two ways that you can like basically get the right answer. Tell me one of the strategies of getting like sodium or potassium bromide when you put the two together.
You cross it. You use the arrows.
Okay, so one of the techniques is the swap and drop. So basically, you pull the 1 from the +1 from the potassium behind the bromine, and then you pull the -1 from the bromine down behind the potassium. So you will end up with
What number is this?
number 11. So you'll end
What
up
is-
with potassium 1, bromine 1. But if
Wait.
you have, go ahead.
Can't you just cancel it out because it's already like +1 and -1?
Bingo! So you didn't even have to do all that. So because of charge balance, if you have an equal and opposite number, so +1, -1, they cancel out. They already equal 0, so you don't even have to do the swap and drop. And notice here it says K1, BR1. When you have the exact same number here, you're going to reduce it, okay? So first, well, 1 really is reduced, but we don't ever write the number 1 down at the bottom as a subscript because we understand that when you write potassium, there is one potassium. When you write bromine, there is one bromine. Like, someone doesn't come up to you and then call your name twice. You know what I mean? Like, it's understood that you're saying, hey, there's potassium. I'm just going to call on the first person I see right here. I'm not going to go up to Aretha and be like, hey, one Aretha. Like, we understand there's one of her. Like, there's no reason to say one, you know? So, because it's there. Like, we know it's there. So, KBR then would be our formula. Let's see if it'll give me something better with text. Cool. So KBR will be our chemical formula for that one. Okay. So as far as like the +1, -1, does this make sense? Or does anyone have any questions about how to get from the charges to the chemical formula? Or are we?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's do number 12. Go, 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 go. Is it me or does that just look super cool? Okay.
That's crazy.
All right, so next question. Okay, so this says we have a lithium with a +1 charge and oxygen with a 2- charge. If you looked on the periodic table, you would see that those are their charges based on their groups. Okay, go away. Okay, so we have lithium with a +1 charge. I'm not good at this. Okay, and then we have oxygen with a -2 charge. Oh my God, I need a touch screen. Okay, so we have +1, -2. So what technique are we gonna have to use with this in order to figure out the
Crossover.
Swap,
so
drop.
you can call crossover if you want, you can call it swap and drop. What was the other one we've heard? Crisscross. I don't care what you want to call it as long as you know what you're talking about. So basically this number, so not the plus, just the number, is going to come from the Li down to behind your oxygen, so from the lithium to the oxygen. This 2 is going to come from the oxygen down to the lithium. So now we are going to have Li2, and then what?
O1.
O1, but do we have to write the 1?
Not really.
No, because we understand that if there's no number there, that means that there's 1. Okay, so then we have Li2O1. So Li, and this is not giving me a subscript here. Li2O, So just understand this is a subscript. It's not supposed to be big like that. It's supposed to be kind of small like that. Okay. So let's look at, okay, so as far as the swap and drop and being able to crisscross those numbers over, I'm assuming we're good with that. Like you see what to do, you see your final product, right?
Yeah.
So do you understand what this number means at the bottom? So how the fact that at the top we are talking about charges, we're talking about electrons, their location, the fact that they're coming and going, where they're going to. So this part, getting from here to here is okay, but you also have to understand what the numbers mean when they're at the bottom too. Okay, so like this 2 for lithium, what piece of information is that giving us about the lithium atoms?
That means you need 2 lithiums positive to be able to cancel out with the oxygen that's negative.
True. So you need 2 lithium atoms to be able to have the charges to cancel out with the oxygen. So for lithium, if each lithium has a +1 charge and we have 2 of them, right? But one oxygen has a -2 charge. Now each one of these electrons has somewhere to go, okay? So the 2 is telling you the number of atoms. So how many atoms of lithium are in lithium oxide? 2. How many atoms of oxygen are in lithium oxide? 1. And then that reason was absolutely perfect because we want to achieve charge balance, because you need to have equal number of positives and negatives, really meaning that the electron has to come from somewhere, has to go somewhere. Okay? Do we feel all right with that concept?
Yes.
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. So I want you guys to tell me, I'll give you like, let's say take like kind of like 30 seconds or something. I want you to type to me in the Zoom chat what the answer is going to be for number 13. And if you're confident, go ahead, give me 13, 14, and 15. So I'll wait 1 minute to see your answers. I'm not even going to pull it up because you're going to be able to see it if I pull it up. So try 13, 14, and 15 on your own, and I'm just going to work it out on paper.
Did you say put it in the group chat or only to you?
Oh, I guess only to me. There's a way, like in the group chat, it should like, I think it starts out saying to everybody, but then you can start typing in someone's name and send it just to them. But
Oh,
either way, I
You gotta
can't
put it
like,
privately.
either way, I can't look at it because if I do, then you'll see on my screen because I'm sharing my screen right now.
Is that saying -1?
For chlorine,
Yeah.
yes. I wonder if I can zoom this in for you.
I made it to where it's private.
Okay. Okay. So how are we looking? Are we good with the answers?
Yes.
Okay, so let me pull up, see what I got. Okay, so 13, calcium chloride, CaCl2, looks good. Okay, and then we have, let's see, some people answered 14. So we have aluminum sulfide, Al2S2, looks good. And then some people put 15, but you can go ahead and shout it out. What would you get for 15?
FES.
FES. So how come we don't have any subscripts for 15 then?
Because you
Just
can't
the
have
same.
They canceled out. Equal and opposite charges, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just type the answers here for reference. Okay, so this one was CaCl2. This one's Al2S3. Okay, and then this one is iron sulfide. Okay. All right, so What is our comfort level with this material?
It's pretty easy.
Pretty easy, it's good?
Yeah.
All right, good, awesome. All right, so now we're gonna get into something that's easy too, but we just haven't done it yet in class, so I just wanna get some practice. So I want us to practice identifying ionic versus covalent bonds, okay? So notice that when we're talking about swap and drop, okay, when we're talking about plus charge, minus charge, and them coming together, that's all ionic bonding, okay? That is donor and acceptor system. And eventually you guys will hear about oxidation reduction. That's really what it's talking about, the donor acceptor, and you will hear different like concepts of like what oxidation reduction is, but that's all next year in chemistry. But notice that for all of these ionic bonds, the first element that's here, what do all of these elements have in common? The potassium, lithium, calcium, aluminum, and iron. All of
Metal.
They all in the same element.
They're, say it again.
Aren't they all in like the same? I want to say the
Theory.
same. Yeah.
They're the same.
Yeah.
Same what? They are the same how? They have something in common, but what is it?
All metals
Don't they have the
converse.
same? No, like they have the same. They're part. Aren't they like part of the same group or something? I don't know. It's hard to.
So some of them are part of the same group. So you see all the ones that are like plus ones, all those are part of the same group.
Yeah.
So calcium and aluminum, so these are not in the same group, like plus 2, plus 3, and iron's a transition metal. So iron's not going to be in there too, or like within that same group, but they are definitely all metals, okay? And what
Yeah, right.
the way that you know that they're a metal is that they have a plus 1 charge, okay? The plus 1 saying that it's going to be a donator of electrons. Metals donate electrons readily, okay? The electrons like flow through them easily, which explains why they're used as conductors, right? We use metals for our wires because electrons flow through them very easily. Okay, so when we are looking at an ionic bond, as I said on YouTube, metal followed by a non-metal. So potassium's a metal, bromine's non-metal, lithium's metal, oxygen's non-metal, go down the list, same thing happens. Now for a covalent bond, you have 2 non-metals, okay? So when you are identifying ionic versus covalent, all you are looking for is, does the element start with a metal? If the answer is yes, it's ionic, because both ionic and covalent both have like a non-metal as the second element. But if the answer is no, and the element does not start with a metal, then that means it has to be a covalent bond, meaning 2 nonmetals that are sharing electrons. So I'm going to pull up that sheet from earlier so we can get practice on just identifying. Okay, so now we're going to go through and say ionic or covalent. So usually the way I have students do this is I don't usually have you write down the metal or non-metal. Rather, out to the side, I just have you put like an M or an NM for metal or non-metal. And so let's just do this to make it easier. If we see a metal, we're going to circle it. Okay? So, and I think you guys have access to edit too, because I see people like drawing lines on this. So I'm going to start, and then I guess we can take turns if you want. So just kind of call out, like, you know, like just say your name, and then so I know who's doing it, and then do the next example. Okay? All right. So notice that in question number, well, let's start with 1. In number 1, we have a hydrogen and we have a fluorine. So do you see a metal in this at all between hydrogen and fluorine? No. So we're going to assume that's 2 nonmetals, move on. So at this point, I'm not even worried about saying the bond type. We're just hunting for metals right now. Okay? So what about in sodium chloride? Do we have a metal?
Yes.
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 No.
What's our metal?
Oh yeah.
Sodium.
Sodium. Okay, so I'm just going to put a circle around sodium because that's our metal. As soon as you see a metal, immediately you're like, okay, ionic. All right? All right, so then number 3. Do you guys see a metal? So we have a carbon and we have a hydrogen.
I want to say yes, but I'm scared to.
So if you say yes, why would you say yes for carbon or for hydrogen?
I don't know. I'm just.
Carbon and non-metal.
Okay, so
Oh.
carbon's a nonmetal. What about hydrogen?
Almost definitely not. That's a.
That's a gas, right?
Yeah,
No.
hydrogen's a gas, and if it's a gas, that means it's definitely not a metal. So we have carbon and hydrogen, so then that would be 2 nonmetals, so then we don't have a metal. Okay, what about number 4? You see a metal in there. We have aluminum and we have oxygen.
Aluminum.
Aluminum. So thank you. So Trevor got that one. So keep in mind that when we're looking at ionic versus covalent, if you see a metal, it will always be the first element, always. Okay? All right, question number 5. We have carbon and we have bromine. Do you see metals, do you see a metal in between there? And please look at your periodic table if you need to.
No, bromine is not a metal, right?
Right, so bromine is a halogen, so it's usually a gas. So bromine is definitely a nonmetal because it's on the right side of the periodic table, and then carbon's also a nonmetal. So a sort of tip to help you guys like figure out metal, nonmetal, because I know you didn't label that on your periodic table, is you guys see kind of like that zigzaggy line on your periodic table, like it may be in bold or something, or it may be colored in where those are like your semi-metals. Anything to the left of that zigzag line, all of those are metals. All right, so anything that falls kind of touching that line or to the left of that line, all those are metals. Everything to the right of that zigzaggy line, all of those are non-metals. Now, the only exception to that is hydrogen. Hydrogen is in group 1, and it is a gas that is in group 1. That is also non-metal, but everything else to the left is a metal, okay? All right, so, all right, number 6. We have sodium, we have sulfur. Do we have a metal?
Yes. I'm not sure.
Which group is sodium in? You can
First
tell me
one.
group number, first one. So group 1, is group 1 to the left of that zigzag line on the periodic table?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
So is the metal. And sodium is in the group alkali metals, definitely a metal. Okay, what about strontium? SR.
Metal.
Okay, metal. Strontium's in group what?
2.
Group 2. Okay, so strontium's a metal. All right, so here's our pattern. So we're just gonna look at the first element. All right, so hydrogen, metal or no?
Non-metal.
Non-metal. Okay, what about barium?
Metal.
Which group is barium in?
Group 2.
I want to say it's 2, because I'm not looking at periodic table right now.
I confuse
Periodic
bromine
table,
and
I need-
barium.
All right, so barium's group 2, definitely a metal. All right, what about carbon?
Non-metal.
Non-metal. What about nitrogen?
Non-metal.
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 Okay, and what about magnesium?
Metal.
Metal. I believe magnesium's group 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so we circled all the ones with metals in it. So all of those bonds that have metals in it, are those going to be ionic then or covalent?
The
Ionic.
ones that have metals at the start are ionic.
Or ionic. I wonder if it'll let me just copy this so I don't have to keep rewriting it. Oh, it did not like that. Okay, so that means, whoa. Okay, I don't know what just happened here. There we go. Thank you. If each person could take like a different ionic, that would be really helpful because my computer's freaking out. I
I'm
don't
trying to figure out how to put it in certain places.
just by dragging the box. That's the best I can figure.
Oh, there we go. I can do it now. It wouldn't work.
Okay. All right. So basically, if you have a metal, it's ionic. The bond is ionic. So that means if the element or if the compound does not start with a metal, then it has to be what?
Covalent.
What type of bond is it? That's what I mean.
Oh, covalent.
Covalent bond, right? So if we have a compound that starts with a nonmetal, then that means that it's going to be a covalent bond. Okay, it just dropped that. I don't know why, but okay. Covalent. So that means all of the rest of these are going to be a covalent bond. Oops. And so that right there is about like 1/3 of what you need to know about covalent bonds. All right. So I don't know if I spelled that right. Can't see. All right. So in a nutshell, what we went over today, we went over ionic bonds. We went over the charges of the ions, how the charges come together to form the bond. We went over the technique, whether you are having to use the swap and drop or crisscross or whatever you want to call it by taking the charges from the top and then pulling them down to create subscripts in the chemical formula. Or if you already see that you have equal and opposite charges, they will cancel out, therefore you do not have any subscripts. So we covered that. So we're looking at also how to tell the difference between an ionic and covalent bond, okay? So ionic bond is a metal with a nonmetal. You do need to know that it is a donor-acceptor system where the metal donates its electrons to the nonmetal. You need to be able to identify an ionic bond by looking at it. As soon as you see that there's a metal as the first element, immediately, ionic bond. Okay, so you know that there's a donation of electrons. With covalent bonds, in this class, like I said, we're only dealing with binary covalent bonds. Yes, it does get far more complex than that. But when you're looking at the two elements, the first one's a nonmetal, the second one's a nonmetal. As soon as the first one's nonmetal, you can immediately say covalent. You do need to know that in a covalent bond, electrons are shared, okay? So that right there is 2/3 of what you need to know about covalent bonds. The last thing you need to know about covalent bonds that you also need to know about ionic bonds is how to name them, okay? So how do we name the bonds? How do we get back and forth between the bond? Go away. Oh, nope. Stop it. Okay, there we go. So being able to go from the chemical formula to the name. So like, how would I know that this is called sodium chloride? How would I know this is called sodium sulfide? Like, how would I know this is dicarbon hexa?
You recognize?
Not even hexahydride, dicarbon hexahydride. Like, how would you know the different naming conventions? That is something that I'm definitely not going to be covering over YouTube or through Zoom because it gets really confusing.
Can I do it in a fast way?
Can you what?
Can I explain it in a way where everybody will understand it?
I mean, I guess you can, but I'm not, for my kids, I'm not touching that. It can get very confusing and you have to be able to go back and forth between ionic covalent, like without being told what is what.
The way I remember is I just have like a certain like game or like word that I know for each one. So like for di, I remember dic as in like cooking where it means two. Or for tri, I remember triangle. Tetra, I remember like Tetris since the max blocks are 4 and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about how to remember the prefixes. Because we haven't even gone over the prefixes yet. If you are interested only if you are interested and want to do this on your own time. I can upload, I think it's already there, but I'll check Canvas. I can upload the PowerPoint if you want to look into how to name, so that when we do get back to school, because that's what we're going to jump into, because there's only going to be two things left to learn when we get back to school. How do we name, and how do we balance chemical reactions? Because those things kind of confuse people. So that's like, but really confuse people. So that's why I'm not going to push it out. But if you are like, you know, maybe it won't confuse me, I'll put the materials up there. You can look over it, ask me whatever questions you have to ask me, but just know I'm not holding people responsible for that, because that's something that's really best, like one-on-one, like me really explaining and kind of sitting down with each person individually and going through it. Okay. But all right. So as far as this stuff right here today, do we feel okay? Do we feel like we need like some more supplement? Maybe like some sort of extra practice on how to do this. I have a sheet that I really like that I would have given you guys if we were in for practicing Ionic Covalent. Would you guys like some extra practice with that, or maybe like a video, like videos to watch to practice along to, something like that?
I'm straight.
You think you're good?
Yes, they are.
Okay, awesome. If you do feel like you're like, yeah, I don't get this, or maybe like a couple weeks go by and you're like, I forgot how to do that, and you just want some practice, let me know, and then I can send you practice that way. But if you're good, then I'm good. All right, so are there any questions about anything else before we go? Because I think we're pretty much set.
Do we
No,
have to
ma'am.
do this choice board over spring break?
No, I'm so glad you said that. Spring break is break. Do not do any work over the break, because I won't be either. I will be relaxing. The break is off. Everybody is off. Please do not do work for any class over spring break, okay?